So as most of you probably know, there are two different types of U Perms, each with their own separate different algorithms. There are a couple of good algorithms that you can use to solve U Perms. Here I'll be going through some of the common ones such as the RU U Perms and the MU U Perms. So the first algorithm that I'll show here is the RU algorithm for the UA Perm. So it goes as follows. The next one here is the RU algorithm for the UB Perm. This is the MU algorithm for the UA Perm. And finally, this is the MU algorithm for the UB Perm. So naturally, a lot of you might be asking the question, well, how do you recognize UA Perm versus a UB Perm? And the obvious answer would be, well, to look at the edge cycle, but unfortunately edge cycles are actually quite difficult to recognize. As an example, here I have a U Perm, but if I told you to recognize the edge cycle, it would take a while because you'd have to figure out where each piece goes in relation to each other. So given some time, you might be able to tell that this is an anti-clockwise edge cycle and it's a UA Perm. But that takes a lot of time, and during a solve we can't really pause to recognize that. So instead, a quicker way is to just recognize which side the opposite colors are on. So opposite colors are very easy to recognize. So here we have orange and red. Orange and red are opposite colors, so the opposite colors are on the right side when we hold it in this orientation. So an easy way to remember it is that when opposite colors on the right side, it's the UA Perm, and if we have opposite colors on the other side, it'll be the UB Perm. But more often times than not, we're not actually interested in what specific U Perm it actually is. We're just interested in recognizing which algorithm we should use. And so I have some tips for that later on in the video, so I'll put some timestamps here if you want to skip straight to that. But for now, I want to go through some pros and cons between the RU algorithms and the MU algorithms. So the benefits of using RU algorithms is that because they're two sides, R and U, they can be done really quickly. Because RU algorithms just flow really well. There's not really that many like special moves or anything that you need to do, and they're just generally really quick to do. However, unfortunately, the RU algorithms do have some downsides. The first one being that they are more difficult to remember. The R and U moves may seem quite random to begin with. I'll go through some memorization techniques that you can use later on as well. But just know that after you learn the RU algorithms and commit them to muscle memory, they will be a lot faster and they will feel really fluid. So if you get past that initial stage of just drilling the algorithms, in the long run, it will be very beneficial if you would like to use the RU algorithms. Also, RU algorithms also do require some special regrips and finger tricks that beginners may not be very familiar with. I'll be going through some more tips on this later on as well, but just know that practice will be very important for mastering the RU algorithms for the U Perm. Now, if you're someone who doesn't like remembering complicated algorithms, then I highly suggest you try out the MU algorithms. They're really easy to remember and they're actually quite short as well. The only downside being that it takes M moves and M2 moves to do the algorithms properly, these finger tricks will also take quite a bit of practice. However, once you get really familiar with doing the M moves and the M2 moves of these algorithms, they can be done pretty much just as fast as the RU algorithms, if not faster, because they're so short. So if you don't like remembering long algorithms, I really suggest you try out the MU algorithms. These are the algorithms that I personally use because I feel like they're just so much easier to do during a solve compared to the RU algorithms. So as I mentioned previously, the easiest way to recognize U Perms is to look at which side the opposite colors are on. So remember, we have opposite colors in this case on the right side, so that means this is the UA Perm. But once again, recognizing that it's a UA Perm is not important if we don't know how to apply the algorithm. But instead of remembering that this is the UA Perm, I like to remember how the algorithm starts based on which side the opposite colors are on. So this might take some getting used to, but I just recognize that if the opposite colors on the right side, if I want to do the RU algorithm, I'll have to start with the R followed by the U prime. That's just what I do. I remember the first two moves, and from then on, after practice, muscle memory should be able to take over. So in this case, once again, this is a UA Perm, right side. So right side, I'll remember it as the algorithm starting with R followed by the U prime. And after that, we have R, U, R, U, R. So R's and U's alternating like that. Finally, when we get to about here, U prime, R prime, U prime, and then by this stage you should be able to solve the cube without even remembering the algorithm. It should be quite intuitive from that point onwards. So the same technique can be applied to the other U Perm. In this case we have the UB Perm, and once again I'll recognize that because the opposite colors are on the left side. But again, we're not really interested in recognizing what this U Perm is called. We want to know what algorithm that we should use to solve this case. So in this case, what I do is left side, I'll remember the RU algorithm that I should use starts with the R2 followed by a U. And the same technique applies. After a lot of practice, you should be able to have muscle memory take over after you do the first two moves. So as seen, opposite colors on the left side, which means that we should start off with R2U. So now this algorithm actually has a very nice way of being remembered. After the first two moves, it's followed by the sexy moves. So R, U, R prime, U prime. And then you can remember that you need to do an extra R prime and then U prime. And by this stage, the cube pretty much already looks solved. You just try and match up the colors, but just in case you can't, it's R prime, U, and then R prime to finish off. So arguably much more easier to remember compared to the UA algorithm, but still it will take some practice. So I definitely recommend drilling the algorithms a few times as well. So RU algorithms are notorious for having very strange finger tricks and regrips because of the very awkward R and U moves that we have to do sometimes. So here I'll be going through the regrips and the finger tricks that I use for these RU algorithms. There are a bunch of different ones out there on YouTube as well. If you don't like these, I definitely suggest you check out some other videos on U Perms. There's all different types of ways that you can do these, and they're all pretty good. I do mine with regrips. I don't do weird like R3 stuff because I've never gotten used to those moves. But if you don't like regrips, you can try those out as well. But yeah, so here we have the UA Perm, and this one once again begins with the R followed by U prime. So the R and U prime are pretty straightforward. So I do regrip at the start for this, for the R followed by the U prime. And then we have a bunch of R's and U's following that. So we do R, and now we do the U with the pinch move here. And then we do another one, R, U, and then by this last R, your hand is already pretty much off the cube, so you can use your index finger and just do it like that. That works. And then at the end, the U primes are pretty obvious. You can just use your index finger on your left hand, and then R primes should not be a problem either. And then this final R2, you can do it this way, or you could flick it the other way, it really doesn't matter, up to you as well. But the good news is that the UB Perm has slightly more reasonable finger tricks and regrips compared to the UA Perm, but still some special spots that you might want to take into account. So once again, this one's on the left side, so R2U. So that's what the algorithm that we're going to use. So it starts off with the R2U, and then we have the sexy move. By the time we do that, our hands are in the home grip, so we can just do the regular pinch move here, followed by another R and another U. And now at this stage, our right hand is not in a really nice position, so we're gonna have to regrip for the very last few moves here. And that should be the end of that algorithm. So there was a regrip near the end there. You could eliminate that by doing like an R3 or something, but I've never gotten used to those moves. I've just regripped and just done it from there. I still think it's reasonably fast, but it will take some practice, of course. Now, if you've just watched that and you're like, there's no way I'm doing those regrips or finger tricks or whatever, then, well, good news, you don't have to use the RU algorithms if you don't like them. So here I'll be going through what the alternative is, pretty much, which is the MU algorithms. So I guess the thing about the MU algorithms is that you have to be comfortable doing MU moves. So if you don't mind doing the MU moves, I highly suggest you try these algorithms out. They can be done really quickly, as I said, but once again, there are some special finger tricks, mainly the M moves, that you might want to practice as well. So starting with the UA Perm, we can recognize that based on the fact that the opposite colors on the right side. So once again, opposite colors on the right side, say it with me, it's the UA Perm. All right, so right side. So with these algorithms, it doesn't matter which U Perm you have, you always start off with the M2. So if you see an U Perm, just doesn't matter which one it is, just do an M2, and then you can, as you're doing the M2, recognize which side the opposite colors are on. So you want to bring the side with the opposite colors to the front, like that, and now M, U2, M prime. And so after you've done that, your cube pretty much looks solved. So you should be able to just match up these colors like that, and then M2 at the very end. So you don't even have to remember like half the algorithm if you just know what you're looking for as you're doing the algorithm. Alright, so finally we have the UB Perm, and it's recognized because, you guessed it, it's the opposite colors on the left side. So with the MU algorithms, once again, don't even need to recognize which one it is at the very start. Just do the M2. As you're doing the M2, oh look, we have opposite colors on the left side, so we want to bring that to the front. Once again, M, U2, M prime. After you've done those three moves, once again, your cube should pretty much look solved, and you can just match the colors up, finish off with the M2, and Bob's your uncle, you've done the U Perm. So if you're wondering how the M moves are done, the M2 moves are done with the double flick with the ring finger followed by the middle finger. So if I angle the cube downwards, it would be done with ring followed by middle, like that. And so at the very start, you'll find that you sometimes miss your target, so you end up hitting like both layers, or like you get stuck somewhere. Honestly, just the accuracy will come over time. Like as you practice these double flicks, you will become more accurate and you'll always hit the middle layer. But at the start, the most common thing, the problem that I encountered at least, was that I kept like missing the actual middle layer. But I promise you that the accuracy will come after a lot of practice. So don't give up, keep practicing, and before long you should be able to do M2s, no problems at all. Now the surprisingly difficult part of the U Perms was actually the M move. So that's when the middle layer moves downwards like that. So this one is done by me with my middle finger, which I just lift up the layer like that. This is a very awkward move at the very start, and it's very difficult to get right, especially when you first learn the algorithm. But once again, it does come with practice. Like this is not a natural move for your middle finger to do. so it will feel very awkward. Even for me now, sometimes it's a bit awkward for me doing the move, but I do it quickly enough in an algorithm that it doesn't really affect it that much. So yeah, definitely practice these moves as well. Also, I almost forgot to mention that the RU algorithms have different variants that can be done from this angle as well, which is the side where you face the 3x1 bar. I personally don't use the RU algorithms, so I don't actually know these ones, but if you're actually interested, I will link these algorithms in the description below if you want to try these out as well. Yeah, so that means that if you get to PLO and you get it from this angle, you don't have to AUF and then do the algorithm and then AUF back. You could probably do it straight from this angle. But yeah, as I said, I don't actually know these algorithms, but I just wanted to mention it just in case you're interested. And I'll link them in the description so you guys can try them out yourselves. So one of the algorithms that I know a lot of people actually learn as beginners is the U Perm that begins with the F2 and ends with an F2. Now, I don't really suggest you should use these when you become more advanced. It does still solve the U Perm case. Just as an example, with this case, it would be something like this. But as you can see, there were a ton of regrips and a ton of rotations, and the Fingertricks weren't even that good as well. It's not too long, it's quite easy to remember, but it's just very, very difficult to execute fast. So yeah, if you're trying to become like sub 30, sub 20 and you're learning PLO and you want to get some good algorithms, please don't use the F2 algorithms. It'll only slow you down. Definitely learn one of the algorithms that I showed today. If you do this algorithm because it's really easy to remember, I do actually recommend you try out the MU algorithms. They're just as easy to remember, and they can be done pretty much like twice as fast as those ones, the F2 ones. So yeah, definitely please don't use the F2 ones. They're extremely slow to do, and they're only going to hinder your U Perms. Now, before I end this video off, I want to quickly talk about AUF with U Perms. If you know anything about AUF, U Perm AUFs are really obvious to recognize. Any headlights on any side can be used to recognize AUF. Pretty much your corner pieces don't move during U Perms, so you can just pretty much look at any pair of headlights to recognize your AUF. So in that case, I didn't have an AUF, but if I did, I could use the headlights to recognize that. So in this case, we have an AUF and it's a U2. So the benefit of doing an AUF is that you don't have to, you can pretty much, doesn't matter which direction this is facing, as long as it's set up to your orientation right now, it's okay. And then you can do the AUF at the end. So in this case, we have blue headlights on a green side. So blue actually belongs on the opposite side. So that means that this AUF is a U2. So I know I have to do a U2 at the end after I do the algorithm, and it's good to recognize that before you do the algorithm, so that once you've done the algorithm, you don't have to pause to recognize it again. So it makes your PLO and your final move just flow that much better. So thanks for watching this new PLO Made Easy video. Yeah, a lot of you might be aware that I do already have a PLO Made Easy series on this channel. I made that back when I had like pretty much no subscribers, no followers or whatever, and a lot of the videos were very rushed, and there were a lot of things that I wish I'd changed or did differently. And that's what these new videos are for. They're going to be a lot more in depth. They're going to go through just a lot more stuff in general. And I'm still going to keep the old videos up. These aren't a replacement or anything. They're going to be sort of alongside each other, and you guys just watch the ones that you think help you learn these better, because the point of making these videos is just to share my knowledge as best as I can to the world. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like the video if you've learned something new. Be sure to subscribe if you want to see more similar videos in the future. Once again, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please leave a comment down below. I'll be sure to respond to all of them. And once again, just thanks for watching. I appreciate your support. Catch you next time.